Hello and welcome. This is Jennifer McGuire. I'm going to start off by apologizing for my funny sounding voice. I'm having some allergy problems today, so I'm a bit sniffly. But in this video, I want to share with you a technique of creating stacked die cuts. So all you have to do is take a little bit of time doing some die cutting, adhere them together slightly offset, and you can create some really cool effects on a card. I'm using some products from Neat and Tangled today. They're celebrating their birthday, so I thought these birthday cards would be really fun. So I'm going to go ahead and walk you through the technique. It is really easy to do. Okay, so I'm starting with 6 pieces of blue cardstock. A variety of shades is good, and I really like it when they kind of blend into each other. And these are all cut to 5.5 by 3.5. I'm using the Celebrate die set from Neat and Tangled. It cuts the word celebrate and also the shadow for it. And this works great for today's cards. In my other example, I used the word awesome and its shadow, which is also from Neat and Tangled. To get started, you take 2 pieces of cardstock and you're going to hold them together so lined up perfect. And then I'm putting the Celebrate outline die right in the dead center of this. Now I am just carefully putting those 2 pieces of cardstock together and then putting the die in place and then carefully also putting the cutting mat on top. Now what's happening is it's going to cut through the top layer and part of the second layer. You could tape these pieces down so they don't shift when you go through, but I was just careful to make sure they didn't shift. So I cut through the top layer. I'm going to set that aside. Now I have the bottom layer, which is just kind of impressed, but it's not actually cut through. Going to take another piece of my 6 pieces of cardstock, line it up perfectly with the other, and then just pop that Celebrate die right into place, and then run it through again. So what I'm doing each time is cutting through one layer and then impressing into the next. After I do that, I take that impressed piece and put that on top and put another piece of cardstock behind it. So what I will end up with is 6 pieces of cardstock that are all cut to the same size with the Celebrate cut from the center of each of them. So they're all going to have the Celebrate cut right in the exact same place. This takes a little bit of time, but really this is the most time-consuming part of the technique. You could do as many layers as you want. I found 5 or 6 seemed to work well for me. You could use any shape die here. You could do maybe a heart or a circle or a star, anything you want. I decided to go with that outline shape of the Celebrate die. Okay, so I'm running this through, and this is my second to last. So now we're down to the last piece. It has an impression on it. I just pop that die right in place, run it through, and that will cut the last piece. So now I have 6 pieces of 3.5 by 5.5 inch cardstock with the Celebrate shadow cut right in the center of each of them. Now we need to cut our pieces apart so we can do this cool offset technique. So I have my Tim Holtz trimmer, which is my current favorite. And I'm going to cut each of these pieces at 1 3/4 inch, which is halfway across them. So I'm cutting them right down the center, and I'm going to keep both pieces. So you could do any side cardstock pieces that you want. It's just helpful if they all start out the same size, and if you die cut in the exact same position each time, using the technique I just showed you with the die cutting. You could use up scraps for this. You could use pattern papers. You can do whatever you want. So after I've cut through all of the pieces right down the center at 1 3/4 inches, I'm going to go ahead and cut all the top pieces shorter. This is so that I have more room on my bottom for a sentiment, which you'll see in a moment. So I'm cutting about 1/2 inch off of each of these so that all the top pieces are a little bit shorter. Now it's time to glue these pieces together but slightly offset for the really cool stacked look. I'm using both a Quickie glue pen and my Tombow stamp runner. Those are 2 of my favorite adhesives. I'm using the Quickie glue pen to go into these little areas because I want those to stick down too. And then I'm using the Tombow runner for the rest of it. You want the adhesive to be close to the edge, that top edge, but not all the way, because you're going to take the second piece and line it up slightly offset. So you see a little bit of the navy behind this blue piece. So I'm going to continue to stack all these bottom pieces on top of each other, but slightly offset each time. Now you could use a variety of adhesives for this. You could put a Stick-It die cut adhesive on the back. Stick-It is a sheet of very thin double-sided tape that you can put on the back of cardstock before you die cut it, and that puts the adhesive on the back. However, I was doing so many pieces here, I didn't want to use up all that Stick-It adhesive, and this seemed to work just fine. You could also use a spray adhesive if you want to, and I'll talk about that in a few minutes. But I found just going around that die cut edge with my Quickie glue pen and then putting regular adhesive on the rest of it worked just fine. Now, since we die cut all these exactly in the same place in the center, they all line up very nicely. That's why we did that trick before where we would die cut through 2 pieces at once. Now, if you didn't cut perfectly and the pieces are a little uneven on the edge, you can trim them with your scissors, or you can take a sanding block and just smooth the edges off and kind of rough it down so they're all nice and smooth. Okay, so now I'm going to do the exact same thing with the top pieces. These are the pieces that we cut a little bit shorter, and I am just going to offset them each time I put all 6 pieces down. I am gluing these down on top of each other in the same order that I glued the bottom pieces, so they both look kind of the same. Okay, so once I have stacked all of the top pieces and all of the bottom pieces, it's time to finish off this card. That's really the most work to this card, and it really gives a fun look. I think this would be a great masculine card. Okay, so I saved room on the bottom piece. I made that bigger so I could stamp the It's Your Birthday sentiment, and I white heat embossed that. I use this coordinating stamp set from Neat and Tangled. It coordinates nicely with the Celebrate die cut that I used. It even has the Celebrate word as a stamp also. So I am going to stamp It's Your Birthday with Versamark ink on the bottom. Since I'm doing heat embossing, I'm first going to brush my anti-static powder tool. Then I'll stamp with Versamark ink, add the white embossing powder, and heat set that. You want to make sure your heat gun is good and hot so that you don't warp any of these pieces that we glued together. If you wanted to at this point, you could do maybe some tone-on-tone stamping on these pieces, scatter some little stamped stars, but I decided to keep this very simple. Now I have a 4 1/4 by 5.5 inch white note card here from Hero Arts, and I'm going to glue these pieces onto it. Now to glue this down, I'm just using my Tombow stamp runner. Any kind of strong adhesive would work for this. And I'm going to glue the top piece close to the top of the note card and the bottom piece close to the bottom. You can play with your sizing that you create these pieces and change the size of your card, but these fit nicely onto my 4 1/4 by 5.5 inch note card. Next, I need to add this Celebrate die cut to the center where that opening is. So remember those pieces I had left over from creating these little background pieces? I'm going to go ahead and die cut from the center of those. So I have the shadow die cut, and I'm going to take the Celebrate die itself, put it right on top, and run that through my die cut machine. Now the little negative space that I have here, I could save for another card. But I'm going to die cut that Celebrate from all of the 6 pieces of colors of cardstock. You could use scraps for this if you want to. If you want to save time, you could just cut one Celebrate and glue that into the opening. But I really wanted to stack this die cut up so it's nice and tall like the rest of our cards. So I'm using my Quickie glue pen again, and I'm just tracing the top of the darkest color, the navy Celebrate die cut, and I'm going to then stick on the next color. I like to line up the middle letter first and then line up the outside letters. It's very easy to do this way, especially after you've done a few and this becomes a little more sturdy. So I layered all 6 Celebrate die cuts together. Now I'm using the Quickie glue pen because I find this is very fast, but there are many ways you can glue each of these together. You could have used the Stick It product and put that on your cardstock before you die cut it, and then they would each have adhesive on the back. Or you could use a spray adhesive. A lot of people like spray adhesives for intricate die cuts like this one. I have the spray adhesive. I honestly don't use it much because I don't like spraying that in my house or, spraying it at all if I have to. If I do use this spray adhesive that you see here, I spray the pieces outside so that I don't have to worry about it. However, I decided not to use that here. I just find that the Quickie glue pen works great for putting the adhesive down to glue each of these layers on top. I really like to use the Quickie glue pen, but you want to be sure to kind of press it down and give it a little bit of time to dry so that it doesn't shift on you as you're creating these layers. Okay, so now I have all 6 layered together and it looks so cool from the side. It has that ombre look. Now we have one more step of gluing to do here, and I'm just going to use the Quickie glue pen to add adhesive to the back of this die cut, and I'll put this right into the opening on the card. Now there are many shapes that you could use for this technique. So instead of that Celebrate shadow that I used to create that opening on the card, you could use a heart and offset the heart, or a circle or a star, or any shape that you may have, and then just put a sentiment die cut right in the center. So I'm going to press that down firmly until it dries, and then check it out. You have that offset stacking around the sentiment, and then the sentiment itself is stacked up to match. Now, since these are birthday and celebration cards, I really wanted to add something special to it. So I put a small, very subtle amount of shimmer spritz over this. So you can kind of see the shimmer in that picture. I use this sheer shimmer spritz, which is hard to say. But what I like to do is take it outside, spray it in the air, and then wave my card through the spray. And I do this like 4 or 5 times, and that puts a very subtle amount of shimmer on it. And you don't get any droplets. You get perfect kind of sheer, even shimmer over your card. I did do a second example using another Neat and Tangled die. This is the Awesome die cut, and it comes with the shadow also. And this time I did some peaches, oranges, and yellows. So you can mix up any color combinations you may have of scraps and use any dies for this technique. Okay, if you're interested in the products that I talk about, they are always linked below in my YouTube description. Also, be sure to go to my blog for a fun blog hop and giveaway in celebration of Neat and Tangled's birthday. In the middle are 2 other videos that might be helpful. They both show how to create embellishments out of stacked die cuts. Thanks for watching. I hope you'll return again soon and have a great day.